A brilliant light hangs silently in the desert night. It is not the moon, it is not a star. It moves with impossible speed, then stops dead. Below, on a dusty road, a car engine sputters and dies. The driver sits frozen, staring up. A feeling washes over them, a mix of profound terror and even more profound sense of wonder. The light feels intelligent. It seems to know they are there. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanishes. The engine turns over. The radio crackles back to life. The world is the same, yet everything has changed for the person who saw it. What was that? A secret military craft? A weather balloon? Or was it something else? Something that slips through the neat categories we build for reality? It is a story that disrupts our ordinary lives. It forces us to ask big questions about what is possible. The experience often feels deeply personal, even psychic. It is more than just seeing an object. It is an encounter. These events push against the edges of what we think we know. They challenge the rules of our science and the stories we tell ourselves about the universe. They are anomalies, glitches in the matrix of the everyday. And sometimes, the most profound way to understand our world is to look very closely at the things that do not fit within it. The things that break the rules we thought were absolute. The strange, the paranormal, the impossible. This is not just about lights in the sky. It is about the nature of consciousness itself. It is about our inner world of thoughts and feelings and the outer world of objects and forces. A UFO seemed to read their mind. To understand these strange reports, we first need to look at our basic ideas about reality. For centuries, Western thought has been dominated by a powerful idea called dualism. Imagine a line drawn down the middle of a page. Visual, split screen. Left you write mind, right you write matter. On one side, you write mind, thoughts, feelings, spirit, soul. On the other side, you write matter, bodies, brains, rocks, stars. Dualism is the belief that these two sides are fundamentally different. The mind is one kind of thing, and the body is another. René Descartes famously argued for this view. He suggested the mind was a thinking thing separate from the mechanical body. This idea feels intuitive to many of us. We talk about our body as if we are a pilot flying a machine. We feel that our consciousness, our essential self, is something more than just the flesh and bone it inhabits. Religious traditions around the world are often built on a dualistic framework, positing a non-physical soul that can survive the death of the physical body. In this view, the mind is like a ghost in the machine of the body, a special kind of substance that animates the physical form and gives it purpose and awareness. The most common form of monism today is materialism or physicalism. This view argues that the only thing that truly exists is matter and energy. The physical world is the whole story. What we call mind or consciousness is not a separate thing at all. It is simply what the brain does. It is an emergent property of complex neural computations, like wetness is a property of water molecules, like a traffic jam is a property of many cars. Materialism is the default philosophy of most modern science. It has been incredibly successful at explaining the physical world, orbits of planets, functions of DNA. For a materialist, there is no ghost in the machine. The machine is all there is. A thought is a pattern of electrochemical signals. Love is a cocktail of hormones and brain activity. When the brain stops working, the mind ceases to exist. Full stop. This is a clean, simple, and powerful picture of reality. It gets rid of the messy questions about spirits and souls. But as we will see, this clean picture might leave out the most important part of our existence, our actual lived experience. It tells a story about a world of mindless, colorless atoms. And then, by some unexplained miracle of complexity, this pointless dance suddenly blossoms into consciousness. Dualism, for all its intuitive appeal, runs into a massive, persistent problem. It has been called the interaction problem, a puzzle that has stumped philosophers for centuries. If mind and matter are two completely different kinds of stuff, how on earth do they interact? Think about it in the simplest terms. You decide you want to pick up a cup of coffee. This decision, a mental event, somehow causes a physical chain reaction. Your non-physical thought makes neurons fire in your brain, which sends signals down your nerves, which makes your muscles contract, and your physical hand reaches out to grasp the physical cup. How does the non-physical command the physical? How does a ghost push a button? How does an immaterial soul pull the levers of a material body? Descartes himself struggled with this. He proposed a tiny gland in the center of the brain, the pineal gland. He thought this was where the soul could nudge the body into action. But this does not solve the problem, it just relocates it. How does the non-physical soul nudge the physical pineal gland? The gap remains. There is no known mechanism by which something without mass, energy, or location could affect something defined by those properties. The problem works in the other direction too. Imagine you stub your toe. Your foot hitting a table leg sends electrical signals up your nerves to your brain. But then, something miraculous happens. That physical process produces a non-physical experience, the feeling of pain. How does a jolt of electricity become the subjective, qualitative feeling of ouch? How does the world of matter create an effect in the world of mind? Dualism draws such a sharp line between the two that building a bridge between them seems impossible. If both dualism and materialism face deep problems, where can we turn? There are other options, other forms of monism that do not begin with matter. One radical alternative is idealism. Idealism flips materialism on its head. It proposes that the one fundamental stuff of reality is not matter, but mind, consciousness. The physical world, in this view, is not a separate, independent reality. Instead, it is a manifestation within consciousness. Objects like tables, chairs are real, but their reality consists of being perceived or being perceivable. The universe, at its core, is experiential. This sounds strange to our modern ears, but it is an ancient and respected philosophical tradition. Idealism elegantly solves the hard problem of consciousness because it starts with consciousness. There is no need to explain how mind arises from mindless matter, because matter itself is understood as a feature within mind. However, idealism has its own difficulties. It can lead to solipsism, the idea that only my own mind exists, which most people find implausible. It also struggles to explain the shared, stable, predictable nature of the physical world. Why do we all seem to inhabit the same objective reality, one that follows consistent physical laws, if it is all just in the mind? Whose mind is it in? Answering this often requires positing a universal divine mind, which takes us into the realm of theology. A more moderate and increasingly popular alternative is panpsychism. Panpsychism is a middle way. Like materialism, it agrees that the physical world is real. But like idealism, it takes consciousness seriously as a fundamental feature of reality. Panpsychism proposes that consciousness is not something that magically appears in complex brains. Now, let us bring this back to the strange lights in the sky and other paranormal reports. For a strict materialist, these events must be explained away. A UFO sighting is a misidentified aircraft, a hallucination, a hoax. A near-death experience is the product of a dying brain, a flood of chemicals creating comforting illusions. A psychic vision is a coincidence, a lucky guess, or a trick of memory. All such data must be dismissed as noise, error, or fraud. But what if we take these reports seriously as data points, even if they are messy and difficult to verify? When we look at the vast archives of these experiences, we find striking patterns. People who report UFO encounters often describe telepathic communication, a sense of shared consciousness with the phenomenon. Similarly, in near-death experiences, individuals report leaving their bodies, witnessing events from a vantage point outside themselves, details later verified by others. They describe a realm of pure consciousness, light and love that feels more real than physical life. Psychic phenomena, or ESI, present another set of challenging data. Decades of laboratory research, though controversial, have shown small but statistically significant effects where human intention appears to influence random systems, where minds seem to retrieve information without using the known senses. These experiments, conducted under controlled conditions, hint that consciousness may not be strictly confined to the individual brain. They suggest mind might have a non-local aspect, an ability to connect and interact across space and time in ways our current physics cannot explain. These are the kinds of findings a purely materialist model struggles to accommodate. From the perspective of idealism, panpsychism, these strange events look less like impossible anomalies and more like potential clues. If consciousness is fundamental, perhaps minds could communicate directly. Telepathy. If the physical world is a manifestation within a broader field of consciousness, perhaps a shift in one's own consciousness, as in an NDE, could provide a glimpse behind the curtain. And perhaps UFOs, whatever their origin, interact with us on the level of consciousness, producing experiences both physical, psychic, objective, and subjective. These worldviews do not prove the reports are true, but they provide a framework in which such reports are not automatically impossible. So, do UFOs prove that reality is mind? The honest answer is no, not in any simple, direct way. Proof is a very high bar. But these phenomena, along with the entire spectrum of paranormal experiences, strongly suggest our simplest models of reality are incomplete. They are like cracks in the smooth wall of materialism, letting in a strange light from somewhere else. They challenge us to be better scientists and better thinkers. They demand that we confront the data we do not understand, rather than simply ignoring it because it does not fit our preconceived notions. A scholar like myself, who studies these things, does not do so to prove a particular theory, but to map the full range of human experience and ask what it all might mean. My work, and the work of others in this field, is to act as a kind of cartographer of the weird. We collect the stories, we analyze the patterns, we try to build bigger maps of reality that can accommodate these strange territories. We argue that these experiences are not just meaningless noise. They are a form of information about the nature of consciousness and its place in the cosmos. To dismiss the testimony of millions of people across cultures and throughout history as mere delusion is an act of intellectual arrogance. A more humble and more scientific approach is to listen, to document, and to ask, what model of reality would make sense of these persistent and powerful human experiences? This brings us back to our philosophical options. Dualism is likely a dead end due to the interaction problem. Strict materialism remains powerful, but seems constitutionally incapable of explaining consciousness itself, let alone the paranormal. This leaves the more expansive monistic views, like idealism and panpsychism, as intriguing, if speculative, possibilities. They offer a vision of the universe not as a dead machine that somehow produces life, but as a living, experiencing entity from the ground up. In such a universe, consciousness is not a fluke. It is the point, and strange encounters with other forms of consciousness may not be as impossible as we think. In the end, we are left not with a final answer, but with a better question. The question is not, are UFOs real? The question is, what is reality? The light in the sky, the voice in the mind, the vision at the edge of death, these are all invitations to keep asking. They call us to a state of profound curiosity and intellectual humility. We do not have the final map. We are still exploring. The greatest adventure is not traveling to other stars, but charting the inner cosmos of consciousness. The mystery of the mind and the mystery of the universe may not be two separate problems. They may be the very same mystery, waiting for us to look at it with new eyes.